Hello, my name is Father Frank Schneider, the pastor of St. Elizabeth of Hungary in Melville, New York. Welcome to the second part of our parish series about Pope Francis's visit to the United States. We focused on Monday evening on what did the Pope say and do. We had almost 100 of our parishioners there, and we were able to break into small groups, some discussion, and then shared reflections together about what we experienced. We tried to listen to the Holy Father, to deeply experience the visit, not just read about it, but experience it, to feel it, and allow it to move in our hearts. The first question we had was, what moved me most deeply during the papal visit? So we broke into small groups, just folks turned and talked to a few people around them, and then we had a chance for those who would like to share their own thoughts. A number of people said what moved them so deeply was when those two little children up in Harlem at that Catholic school took the Holy Father by the hand on either side and brought him to the smart board to show them their project. The Holy Father didn't know how to work the smart board, and that little girl took him by the hand to help him do that. That moved a few of our people. Many shared they were deeply moved when the Holy Father visited the prison, the correctional facility in Philadelphia, and reminded the prisoners that God's mercy is for all of us, and that all of us, through the mercy of Christ, can change. All of us can change. The prayer service at Ground Zero moved so many who were present on Monday evening. We've heard that all from our friends as well. The Holy Father gathered with all those religious leaders and proclaimed the necessity of peace and the possibility of peace with all of our differences, that we're united through our faith in peace. One of our parishioners shared how moved she was when the Holy Father walked right over to that little girl in Madison Square Garden in the wheelchair, gave her a blessing, and the little girl said now she knows someday she'll be able to walk. And how the Holy Father continually reached out to children, especially children with special needs, and how that deeply moved so many of the folks that were gathered on Monday evening. Also deeply moving was his voice when he would speak, his smile, how he drew people close to him with his humanity. And that was a constant experience that people felt throughout the visit. And then finally, the Holy Father's beautiful words to the women religious of the United States at the Vesper service at St. Patrick's Cathedral moved many people to hear him say how important these women have been to our country, that we wouldn't be who we are without them, and how he loves them, and how sincere those words were. His first major talk was at St. Matthew's Church in Washington to the bishops, and just a few little highlights of that we were able to share. He kept saying throughout the visit that he's came not to offer a plan or a strategy or to judge or lecture, not to tell us what to do, but always just sharing reflections and allowing us to think about that and pray over it. He stressed to the bishops, it's not the power of strength, it's the strength of powerlessness by which God has saved us. And that dialogue is our method. That harsh and divisive language does not befit the tongue of a pastor. Only enduring love is convincing. And yes, they are to confront the issues with the creativity of love and the humility of truth, and to make that an attractive light of love as we gather, as Holy Father used the image, gathering around the family fire of the resurrection of Christ, of Easter. And we shared in those small groups about what surprised me during the Pope's visit. Many shared the stamina of the Pope, his smile, his energy continued throughout the entire trip. That he was, even at the very end, they never expected him to be that non-stop, full of energy and stamina. Another surprise was when that little boy got up to sing that beautiful rendition of Pie Jesu at the Festival of Families in Philadelphia. it was also commented on that people were surprised that at these liturgies they could feel the power of the liturgy even through television. They hadn't experienced it that much before. That the way that these liturgies came across, they could feel the power that normally they would not feel. Also, there was an aura around the Pope that surprised people, that people felt they could touch the Holy Father, how approachable he was, telling jokes, smiling, especially when little children felt so comfortable to reach out and touch him. Another surprise was his humility, expressed constantly when he said, well, this was in Harlem, when he told them, I'm giving you homework. Pray for me. Pray for me that I can continue to bring the good news of the gospel to others. Another surprise for folks was the cross-section of Americans that found the Holy Father appealing, who were touched by him. A few of our parishioners shared that their Jewish friends contacted them to say how much the papal visit meant to them. Holy Father gave his very important, significant address to Congress. We just mentioned a few highlights together on Monday night as he called us the land of the free and the home of the brave, and had dialogue with our historical memory of the people whose sacrifice and spirit are so American and have built a better future. Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton. He's just happy that America continues to be, for many, a land of dreams, and that for the foreigners who come, we're not fearful. Instead, we're not taken aback by numbers. We focus on their faces, their individual stories, knowing how this is how our country has been built. Then a surprising statement, and how adamant, saying he has been and will be an advocate for the global abolition of the death penalty, that every life is sacred. And then able to conclude saying he always hopes that America is a land of dreams. Later in the day, he had the canonization mass for Junipero Serra, and at that mass, stressing with us again his theme of joy. Rejoice in the Lord always. Go forth, proclaim the joy of the gospel. Anoint one another with the light of Christ, with the joy of Christ. And quoting Father Serra's motto, Siempre adelante, always go forward. And that's how he concluded, encouraging us, forward, let's keep moving forward. Another question that we shared together, did I find the Pope's words, or did I find his actions more powerful? And we had a very good discussion about that. First was just the gesture of driving around in that Fiat, especially amidst all those other large cars. A constant gesture, powerful gesture, more than words, of how a simple life is a joyful life. Another comment that was made here is that the actions right now are the ones that are really ingrained in our memories. But this parishioner felt, she said, that in the future we'll be contemplating his words, and the power of his words will emerge, and that those will stay with us, and how blessed we are to have the time ahead to reflect on his words. Another person said that his actions toward each person, making eye contact and really seeing Jesus in them, and vice versa. His actions, too, at Ground Zero were beyond words. And again, our group returned to that as such a powerful experience. Earlier that day, the Holy Father spoke to the United Nations, and very briefly our group just reviewed how he stressed how the natural environment and the vulnerable are two issues that are deeply connected, that the health of our planet is deeply connected to the poor, who suffer the most because they survive on what is discarded and suffer those injustices with the widespread culture of waste. There were a few people with us on Monday evening that attended the Mass at Madison Square Garden, and They shared with us that it was probably the most powerful Mass they ever attended. It was incredible to meet so many joyful people, the fraternity, the togetherness, the reverence, the silence. One said you could hear a pin drop with 20,000 people. Listen to the stories of the people around them, of why and how they got there, how courteous to each other, how respectful. A real testament that folks shared with us to being Catholic. That thousands of people saying the prayers was just so very deeply moving. We also shared what challenges me the most. What challenges me the most about the Pope's visit? And the first piece was about the environment. It's such a huge problem throughout the world. What could I possibly do? We agreed it's the small gestures, the small things that we do. That's where we can begin as we move away from a culture of waste and we're sensitive to the beauty of God's creation. Another great challenge, the Holy Father says, go forth and act. Go forth and act. Don't live in glum apathy, but be filled with the joy of the gospel. Go forward, especially to the needy. Be filled with the joy that he exuded throughout his visit. Another very deep sharing was challenges to love despite our differences, and how difficult it is to truly love, especially when we be hurt or injured or abused, to treat everyone as a human being. That love is the final word, that love, not hatred, solves conflicts. Also, one woman shared with us how the challenge for her is an examination of conscience, to turn in, to look within, and to ask these challenging questions, to use prayer and reflection in order to move more deeply into the reality of the gospel. On Saturday evening was the Festival of Families, where the Holy Father had put down his notes and spoke so passionately about the truth and beauty and goodness of the family. We shared a little bit about that on Monday night as well, and how the family with a truly open heart is what God delights in. He brings his love to open hearts. The Father sharing in a humorous way as well that family life is not easy, that sometimes the plates can fly, the children bring headaches, and he said, I won't even speak about mothers-in-law, but talks about, with all the problems, it's always the light of the resurrection that shines forth and conquers. It's the light of the resurrection that has the last word. The family is like a factory of hope, a factory of resurrection. Finally, we tried to talk a little bit about where we would like to see our parish of St. Elizabeth, how we'd like to see our parish follow up after the Pope's visit. And just a few comments that were made there. We know that this is a long ongoing process for us, but how important it is to have hands-on ministries, especially with the needy, to strengthen those that we already have in our parish, and to find new ways for hands-on ministry. So many of us have a sense of parish pride, that many of the things the Holy Father shared with us we have been trying to do here at St. Elizabeth for a long time, but we need to strengthen that and to continue to bring those words alive by our ministries and our actions. Another person shared how important it is to reach out to the homebound, to those who are alone or new in our parish, to make them feel welcome, to have put a real practical spin on how welcoming we are as we go out and go forth to new people and to those who are not able to come to church. And then finally, we were reminded by one parishioner that parish life is about stewardship. It's about sharing our time, our talent, and our treasure, and we continue to challenge ourselves through stewardship to put into effect what the Holy Father has said. Next Monday evening, October 5th, we'll be having a meeting of the heads of all of our parish groups with the Pastoral Council, and we hope to talk about some of these issues as we move ahead. Again, the Holy Father's joy, his humanity, the joy of the gospel. And we all agreed as we ended our Monday evening session together that we want to be touched with that joy and share that with others. that we all go forward with great joy. Thanks for listening.